2 minute drill time. I'm Jim Monaghan along with Chris Swendeman. And if you're watching this on video, you already know who our guest is at the bottom of the screen right there. Someone that Chris and I both know and have worked with and for a number of years. It is a privilege to have the great Terrie Carr with us here on the 2 minute drill. TC.
I'm so privileged that you guys asked me, and I'm not really sure what we're going to 2 minute drill. So I'm excited because I like to sort of be like the element of surprise is always a good thing for me. So I like that.
So, Terrie, you have this uber successful series, Reconnect with Rockers, where you interview the who's who of rock and roll. You're the interviewer. Now you're on the other side of the desk and you're the interviewee. How do you prepare differently for when you're in this spot versus how you prepared to talk to a Sammy Hagar, a Gene Simmons, Don Felder recently? What's the different mindset coming in?
I feel more nervous because I feel like I'm a control freak. So when I know what I'm going to ask these guys, I don't know what you guys are going to ask me. So, yeah, it's a little more like I feel a little more sweaty and a little more nervous, believe it or not. And I know you guys, some artists that I interview, I don't know, but I don't really know what's coming down the pike. So, when I'm the interviewer, I'm in control, even though it's like Gene Simmons. I still know where I hope we're going to go. So I don't know where we're going to go. So it's up to you guys.
Chris Swendeman just
Save
referred
me.
to Chris just referred to Reconnect with Rockers. And for people who watch the 2 minute drill, listen to it, and may not be aware of WDHA or Reconnect with Rockers, it's an interview series that grew out of the pandemic when we couldn't get any artists to come into the radio station. And you came up with this idea of interviewing them in their homes and in their living rooms. And the end result was, I think, so much better interviews because they were relaxed. I think the first interview that I remember you doing with Brent Smith from Shinedown,
There
he
were
was
two
so
earliers.
relaxed.
Let me tell you, there were two earliers. It was the person who was actually behind this, believe it or not, was Lonesome George Thorogood. And
Really?
I don't know if it was him or he has an amazing manager, Adam Condi, who I adore. And it might have been Adam. I don't really remember specifically, but somebody reached out to me and said, George is at home and he's really bored. So somebody said to me, you could Zoom with these artists. And the second one that wanted to do it was Joe Satriani. I think Brent was number three. I didn't know anything about Zoom, how to do it, how to send an invitation, how like nothing, zero zilch, not a nothing. But I was willing to try. So Thorogood was one. Um, Satch was two. I remember sitting there going, how am I going to know if he's in? And it was like Joe Satriani has joined the meeting. And Brent from Shinedown was three. And I thought by number three, I'm like, oh, I've got this down. And of course, now you're still realizing that there are so many things that you can do with Zoom. I love it because you don't need to be in their same town. You don't need to get them for 15 minutes before a show. I've had people on with me that have had like a pet pass away right at the time that we're doing it or something going on in their lives, and they're so open. I've done them at all times of the day or night, evening. Ann Wilson at night, and she's in this whole Nancy Wilson from her kitchen. So it's a very different feel than anything I could have imagined. It's like a dream come true, really, and I love it. I love doing it. It's my favorite thing.
I think it has taken radio interviewing to a completely different level because they're so relaxed. You talked about talking to an artist, say, before the show, and I remember us being with Sully Erna of Godsmack at the PNC Bank
Yes.
Arts
Oh my
Center,
God.
and we're in a small little rehearsal room, and it's relaxed. Sully is friendly and everything, but it's not the same because he's on the job, if you will.
And he has the show to do.
Right.
Where I've
Right.
had artists that'll be like, oh, wait, and let me tell you one more thing. Oh, wait, can we talk about this? Oh, wait, let me tell you one more thing. Oh, I forgot to tell you this. Can we record again? And it's really nice. I've had people that have had their kids bust into the room, or, my dog is wild and crazy. Everybody knows Rosie. So I don't know when she's going to, do something, but everybody's like, oh, if my dog's bark, is it okay? Or if my cat jumps up. So it's a very relaxed feel. And I think you really get to know the artists that I talk to. And I keep it very relaxed too. I have like 4 or 5 bullet points. That's it. Sometimes we don't even touch on those. We just kind of see where the interview takes us. So, yeah, this week I've got Don Barnes from 38 Special. I've got Glenn Hughes, the legendary, amazing Glenn Hughes. I'm such a fan. So it's very, very exciting. You know, I've had my mom here when I've had Slash, and she's calling up saying, Slash, he's so gorgeous, you know, like, and Slash is hearing that, of course. So you just really don't know what's going on, and you don't really know what's going to happen. And it's always fun.
Radio programming. I want to ask a couple of questions about this, Terry, because it intrigues me. And what DHA has always done, although the sound has changed a little bit, but what DHA has always done, and to this day continues, is play an incredibly wide variety of music. And I was at William Patterson University about 3 years ago. I was a guest for a communications professor, and we got talking about the way the station was programmed, and we had Last Played up on a whiteboard from the radio station, and I had been talking to these students about
Wow.
how and what we play, and I pointed it out because there's a Jimi Hendrix song from 1966, and there's a Rolling Stones song from the 90s, and here's Stone Temple Pilots, and here's this, and that's hard to do when everything is so niche oriented.
Six
So
generations. Yeah.
how do you do it?
Let me tell you, you want to know how I do it? I do a lot of fighting. I've had a lot of people over me say, it'll never work. You've got to pick one. You've got to pick one area. You know, you've got to either be all hard or all this or all that. And it's a lot of fighting. It's a lot of arguing. It's a lot of saying, no, 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 don't underestimate the listeners. It's a lot of, try to respect the station's heritage. So there's a lot of that goes on because people's mindset is, no, if you're going to play Godsmack, then it's only bands that sound like Godsmack. And that's utterly ridiculous. We can play Godsmack, and we can play the Allman Brothers Band, and we can play Poison, and we can do a new track from Nothing More. Our listeners want new music discovery. I have so many people that thank us for introducing them to new music. If we play the same 6 bands over and over, we're like an Energizer bunny that just keeps hitting the wall. There's no passion for it. And I've seen so much passion for so many of the new bands. And of course, we're not going to ignore the heritage of where these artists come from. The Hendrix of the world, the Queens of Noise of the world, the putting Bonnie Raitt next to Dorothy, next to Poppy, that's what we do. That's music. That's the passion of music. We've seen from parking lot parties and Rock the Rock Fest shows. I've seen grandmothers with their granddaughters. Don't ignore that. And so it's a lot of me trying to get people to understand what this radio station and the passion behind it, with the listeners driving the passion, has been about for close to 50 years. Not easy. I'm never the good guy.
So,
No, go ahead, Chris.
good. So, Terry, sticking with the radio for a minute. So, we obviously have said multiple occasions how Gene Simmons has come out on a couple of occasions and said rock is dead. And we have clearly on DHA alone disproved that because there are so many bands like Shinedown, Hailstorm, and so many others that we play on the station that are carrying the torch for the new age of rock. Flip that and change rock to radio. And while there have been challenges in terrestrial radio, how important is it, and what's the landscape in your mind of the future now and the future of terrestrial radio?
I think we all have to know our worth. I think the stations have to know their worth. The talents have to know their worth. And I think, look, we are not a streaming service. We don't profess to be. So I'm not trying to be you never hear us say like commercial free. I never understood that. Makes no sense to me. These are public service announcements to people. We can let you know where to go to buy a car, or to have a great meal or to adopt a dog or go to a concert. This is what we do. We are community driven. So you can have listeners that have left the area. Streaming gives them a whole new platform now, where if they're in Florida or Ireland or Oklahoma or Wisconsin, I've had people that have come out to Rock the Rockfest shows that are asking me, where is Newark? Where do I stay? And I'm like, I don't really know what to tell you. I've not necessarily stayed there because I don't live that far from Newark. So they're streaming us. They want that public service. Look, I know that sometimes it's tough if you're listening through and you're waiting for your favorite songs. We get that. But we're not a streaming service. We're there to provide another service for you. And that is a service about the community that we serve. Jim, you know, from doing Jersey Magazine, it's so important to get involved in things that people do in the community, whether it's adopting a rescue dog, or I've got kids now coming up on my Rock and Rough Roundtable that are raising money for the community and shelter dogs. Jim, both you and I have been involved with Operation Canine Beethoven. That's helping veterans and dogs. This is what community radio does. This is what local radio does. Local radio lets you know when a disaster is coming or a thunderstorm is coming, or we've got a flood on our radar or something. These are things that local radio does. We provide more than just streaming your music. You can stream that in your car on CarPlay or on your phone or on a satellite service. We don't pretend that they're not out there. We know that they're out there, but we've got something different to offer. And I think, and I love Gene Simmons, and he's such a smart guy, and I adore Gene, but I don't think he's in the trenches as much as we are in the trenches. So when he says rock is dead, I don't think he lives it, where he sees kids out at concerts, where he sees Seether on stage, recognizing a child in the audience who's been a Seether fan forever. He doesn't necessarily see that because he's kind of in his own world. And we're all guilty of that. We are all guilty of being in our own little stratosphere. So I think in his mind, he kind of believes that because he harkens back to the glory days. We all remember, look, when you think back, when I was in high school, those were the days. I do it too. I'm like, we're listening to Sabbath records in the woods, drinking beer nips. It was the best. It was the best. But you've also got to open your mind to new experiences. And so that's what we do. We provide more than that. And there's still 95% of people that check out local radio in their cars, in their homes, on their smart speakers every day. Do we get the return of attention that we used to get, where they're listening for 30 hours, at one clip? Probably not, because they can go anywhere and stream anything and get it all on their TVs. But are they still tuning in for the things they love? And that's music, community, and everything else. You bet. When we were all locked down and most people were at home during COVID, we had some of our best ratings periods ever, because people wanted a chance to connect with people that they thought were their friends. And that was us. That was us. A lot of the things behind me, people have given me. A lot of the jewelry that I'm wearing here is a WDHA bracelet I have on. That's the sense of community that you're not going to get from a streaming service. So we don't pretend to be. We're not telling you we are. We understand that you have other choices, and we're good with that. We're providing something different, and we hope to get you for something at some point.
Over the course of your career, you've programmed a couple of different platforms, including a station like DHA. You've done other local radio as well. And you also programmed a Sirius XM channel, at least one, if not more.
Four.
Right? Four, that's right. And you had said to me once, because Carol Miller, who's legendary, everyone knows who Carol is.
Love Carol.
You had said to me once, what am I going to tell Carol Miller about doing radio? And I think you said the same thing about Dennis Elsis. Yet at the same time, you're managing those people. There's a thin line there that you walked very well. How did you do that?
I think I saw respect for their art forms. Carol's always been an artist. I grew up listening to her, and I told her that immediately. And I said, I grew up listening to you. So there was not a lot that I think sometimes when people think someone's your boss, they have to find things or do things or, you know, and that's not always true. If you come in and you're someone's manager and they're doing their job, you're good. My job's easy. I hire you guys because you guys are good at doing your job. So that takes everything off me. I'm looking to skate, man. I'm looking for an easy job. So when you're managing somebody who's an icon and a legend, there's not a lot for me to do. So I don't have to pretend to have a lot to do. And I squared that up with somebody who I had the utmost respect for early on. I mean, what can I tell her that she does not already know and do? So it was an honor to work with her. And I really, really enjoyed my time working with a lot of the people that I grew up listening to. It was a beautiful honor. I was not long there because I did miss the daily interaction with listeners. And I felt like I didn't really get that there because they're built to do something else. And what they do is fine too. Not knocking it. But for me, I recently posted a bunch of fan photos that I came across. That's the best part of my job. Hanging out with people at shows and hearing from people, whether they're complaining or they're loving the station, I don't care. I posted like a guy from Ozfest with the big skeleton on his belly this week. And I was like,
I saw that. It was a great.
I loved that guy
Fantastic.
so much. And then the two guys that I saw not so long ago at Rock the Park, I guess. And the one guy had the He-Man Sup Lady shirt on, and his friend was in a Beavis and Butthead shirt. And I was at the broadcast table and I was like, those guys I want to talk to. So that's the fun part of it for me, is being with the listeners, talking to the listeners, getting their feel. I'm a people person. So that's the part of it I like the most, rather than kind of being insulary and being all by myself.
So you talk about, like we said, Carol Miller, and Terry, for me, and it's just being honest, you are one of the icons in females in radio for me. And when there's a young woman who wants to get into radio and she's looking at you like you talk about Carol Miller, and she wants to get into radio, what are you telling her at this point? What is your advice to a young woman who wants to start her career and become the next TC or become the next radio star in general?
I always tell people now, know your worth. I didn't always know my worth. And I believed what people told me. Women could never be a program director. They were the music director people. So you could do the other jobs and the guys would be the program director. And it's just kind of the way it was. I'm not saying it was so bad or it was so... I just didn't know that wasn't always true. So I think people should know their worth and not necessarily believe what they're told by other people. Because I'm not saying you need to be full of yourself, because everybody's replaceable, but know your value and don't let people tell you that you're not worthy of things. It's certainly worth trying. Success is measured by talent meeting opportunity. That's how you get to be successful. You've got to have opportunity. It sucks, but you do. And you have to have some kind of a talent to back it up. So for women, I'm not going to lie. It's changed, but it's still not there. So we're still fighting. We're still fighting to get every roadblock moved out of the way. If you are strong, you are mean, which is a little different. Sometimes the guys aren't mean. They're just really strong managers. But I've accepted that. I understand that. I think it's made me a better person. I'm really careful about everything, because I don't want to make that bad name for women. But I think knowing your worth and not necessarily believing the things that you're told, that you're only good in a certain slot. You don't really see that many women hosting morning shows. You can be the co-host, but not necessarily the host. There were 2 slots for us. We could do a midday or we could do an evening. We were never invited to be in the drive times. And so I think that debunking those things now and not believing them, I always believed them because that's the way it was at every radio station. So if I saw an evening slot at a radio station like WDHA that I wanted so badly to be a part of, I was doing nights at one station, and then I came to DHA to do nights again because those were the slots that were open to us. So I think just taking those things and moving them out of your mind and having an open mind, and also being valuable in a lot of different aspects. We need to have a really mad skill set, especially as women. You need to be a great interviewer. You need to be really good on social media. You need to be good on the air. You need to be able to voice great commercials. You've got to have a mad skill set, mad. So hone your craft. I say to people all the time, whether they're male or female and they come into WDHA, learn what you can. I know it's a lot of work, but learn what you can. We've got somebody now who I had this conversation with just like 2 weeks ago. And I said, the smartest thing you've done is learn all aspects of what we do here and master that, because it's going to take you into the next phase of your career.
Yeah, that's why internships are so great. I think for any business, but definitely radio. I'm speaking of someone who had an internship at NBC coming out of college, and what I learned was invaluable.
Yep. And you got to have thick skin. You know, you cannot be someone who, if somebody, and not every PD is going to like every jock. So I've had people say to me, you're too loose on the air. You know, you don't sound like, I never let it bother me. I was like, well, that's who I am. I'm too loose on the air, whatever. So you've got to roll with these punches. You got to have a thick skin. You got to keep moving forward, keep your eye on the prize, know what you want to do, and figure out the best inroad to get it done.
The three of us were talking about something before we came on the program this evening, and that was aging out of a demo. And we had Richard Neer on a few weeks ago, and Richard has done rock radio. He's done sports radio.
Super guy. Yep.
Tremendous talent.
Amazing.
Tremendous talent. Was just removed from his Saturday morning shift. And part of the reason why is Richard is aged out of the demo. I'll be honest here. I've aged out of the DHA demo. I did a few years ago. I think I can still relate to that audience. I hope I can. But those are challenges that, I don't think we always realize. If you watch a television commercial, like there's nobody my age. Chris, there might not even be anybody your age in a beer commercial these days, because
Probably not.
You've already picked your brand. So who are they going for? They're going for a younger demographic. And I think with radio, you can see that as well. And we kind of alluded to this because DHA in 1998, when I came aboard, Terry, you said more of a blues-based type of thing. Played some Grateful Dead. You come in, you're the PD. It's still DHA, but there's a little bit of a different stamp. Curtis K comes in. He becomes PD. Kurt puts his stamp on it. It's still DHA. You come back to PD. You put, again, your stamp on it. But again, I think part of it, your stamp, and by your stamp, I think more of it is acknowledging where we are musically, socially, economically, whatever is going on in the market. And because it's a local radio station, you can really kind of super serve that. But that idea of, our listeners, some of them age out, that doesn't mean they're not listening, but it's a little bit of a different target audience. What's that challenge like for you?
For me, my main thing has always been that DHA has been a guitar-driven radio station. So there's a couple of things, that determine the new music we play. Say, I'm looking at bands that are, streaming a lot. I like to see that. I like to see bands that are selling concert tickets. I also like bands that sonically fit. So there've been a lot of bands that maybe were not, killing it on the Billboard charts, but I was like, this is a great DHA record. I like to not think about demo anymore. For me, it's like I look at some of our listeners, and we've got kids, and then we've got people in their 60s or 70s. So it's so hard for me. I was talking to someone about this last week in the record industry, and I said, we have to take those things. Now we're in 2025, kids. We've got to take those preconceived notions and stop programming like it's 1995. Take those things and throw them out the window. And it's hard to do that. And it's hard to get other people to understand that you've got to do that. But I try not to get in that, like, what's the demo? The target demo for rock radio always used to be 25, 54-year-old men,
Yep.
and then
Yep.
18-34 as the second sweet spot. Well, I don't see that because I see a 50-50 split for DHA listeners. We got a lot of ladies that listen too. So I try to wipe my mind clean of that. And I think that that's what keeps me moving forward as program director.
All right, be honest. What's the toughest part about dealing with me?
I really don't have any tough parts about dealing with you. I've got to be really honest. I don't have tough parts about dealing with either one of you, which is very, very nice for me. So, you know me, I don't mince words. You both know that.
No, you don't.
No,
That is
no,
true.
no, 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 no.
I'm good.
And that's one of the things I like about you most, to
I'm
be
good.
honest with you.
Yeah, if I'm pissed off and I'm having a bad day, I say I'm pissed off and I'm having a bad day. It's nothing either one of you have done. So I'm a straight shooter, and I think that that's an easier way to manage people.
We're coming down the home stretch here, and as we do with our guests when we have them on, we like to do a little bit of a lightning round. So, and we call this the 2-Minute Drill podcast, as a matter of fact. So we're just going to throw some questions at you and see how quickly we can get to it.
Okay.
All right. First one. Favorite up and coming band that people need to know about big time?
I would say Return to Dust. I really like those guys. I think they've got a cool 90s sensibility, and I think they're really good musicians. 2 lead vocalists. I think they've got all the components to go all the way.
Favorite change in radio over the past decade?
Favorite change, seeing more women actually be able to be program directors. We've got a couple of females, in our own chain with the company that we work for. So I think having people's minds open to having more female program directors and younger female program directors, up and coming people, I think has been a great move forward.
On the opposite side of it, least favorite change that you've seen in the past 10 years?
Downsizing of people. People are our product. That's our value. And you can never get the same results with less people. And I think that that's unfortunate for the industry as a whole.
Yeah, and that is happening across the board industry.
No question about it. Yep.
Whether it's local radio, network radio, satellite radio, it's happening everywhere.
Yeah, the AI thing is very scary, and it's going to continue to be really scary. And anytime that I've done anything with it, it's not worked out very well for us. We've Googled ourselves on AI or did a chat GPT, and it's stuff that's not even happening. It's not even relevant. So that's scary. And the downsizing of people has been really frightening.
You're a big reader. We know that you love the rock autobiographies. Best book you've read in the last 3 months?
Oh, goodness. I mean, there's so many, but I still really love, I just recently read Mike Campbell's book and the Anita Pallenberg biography as well. I'm a big Anita fan. She was a big fueler for the Rolling Stones. The women back in the day were more than, I don't even want to say the G word, they were very inspirational to these guys. So reading Anita's book, I just loved it. It gave me chills. She's so mysterious and cool. And I loved her, and beautiful and incredible. Rest in peace, Anita Pallenberg.
Read the book on the Bangles.
Oh, I got to get that.
Yes,
I'm a
you have to
big
read
Bangles
that.
fan. Love
Yeah.
them. So underrated.
And some of the stuff that we were talking about a little earlier, women in rock and women in radio for that matter, they
I have
talk
a
about
great
that.
one actually that Mike Anthony gave me for my birthday. And it's literally like, I'm looking at it right now, but it's like about badass women in music. And it's really, really incredible. And it's one of my favorites too.
Favorite concert?
I'm always a Stones maniac, and every Rolling Stones show I go to takes me back to being a kid for the first time that I saw them. And when I go to a Springsteen show, I get a little pang in my heart too, because that was my first ever concert with my father. And I will never, ever forget the feeling that I got at a 3.5-hour Springsteen show. Our second concert, I think, might have been Peter Frampton. He played for 45 minutes, and I was like, where's the rest of the show? Because when you're a kid, you go see Springsteen, it's like 4 hours. And I'm like, that's it? There's no more show? But I'm a Rolling Stones geek, and I will go as far as I have to and pay anything I have to see the Stones live. I love them.
Chris, one more?
Yeah. I wasn't sure if you, so any young female rock fan, what's the best female rocker that she should see live?
Oh gosh, there's so many.
I
I mean, I
know.
love Plush and I love Dorothy. And for the metal fans, there's like Poppy, and there's just all these great artists that are coming out. I was literally talking to a young woman at about 22, and we were talking about all of these great, performers that are out there live. I think anybody who's playing live, who's singing live, and who's writing their own material is definitely worth being a fan of, because that's the thing that's going to propel you into the future always. But we are so lucky right now that it's a really, really great time for women in music.
As we wrap things up here on the 2 minute drill, one of the things that's come up again and again and again is you talking about listeners. And I've worked with some amazing program directors over the years, going back to NEW in New York and some legendary people. And as good as or great as those program directors may have been, they never looked at it. And maybe it's because it was the city and it was big, but they never looked at it on the basis of looking at the listeners. How are the listeners going to react to this? That type of thing. And I really applaud you. And maybe that's because DHA is more of a local station and we can afford to go down that road and be a little bit more pinpointed towards something. But your passion, and I said this the last day I did the morning jolt back in September of last year, your passion and your commitment to the radio station and to the listeners, which I think is even more important, is just off the charts for me, Terrie.
Thank you. I grew up a listener. So when I interviewed for the job and I walked in and I saw Curtis there doing afternoon drive at the old building on Route 10, I grew up a listener. So always preserving that part of the radio station was the goal and the most important part for me, because that's who I was. I came in as a listener. I never came in as it being a job.
I was living in a basement apartment in the Bronx and I was listening to the DHA.
Greatest station.
In college, right?
Same. Yep. Same with me. Every morning getting up for school, DHA was on my radio, and Kurt was doing mornings, and it was amazing. And all I ever wanted to do was work at that radio station. So it's been a great privilege and honor for me to be there for as long as I have.
And you can hear Terrie, of course, middays at 105.5 WDHA. It has been an absolute thrill having you on with us, Terrie. I really can't.
Thanks, guys. And Rosie was so good.
I know, right?
I'm so surprised. She was so good.
Yeah, if you're not a DHA listener, and shame on you if you're not, Rosie is Terrie's dog and frequently makes trips to the radio station.
And frequently is very loud. She's the original queen of noise. Yes.
That's right.
Thank you guys so much for having me on.
And
It's
you know
been
what
so
we
great
say,
having
Chris,
you.
if you like what we do, tell a
Yep.
friend. If you don't, tell an enemy. Just tell somebody. Like, subscribe, do all of that good stuff. And we'll check in with you next week, probably Monday.